The stars bent and twisted as the Vrathi fleet emerged from faster than light. Travel 300 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, their dark hulls gleaming under the distant light of the sun on the bridge of the flagship Times Dominion's Edge asterisk. Fleet Commander Thelvas examined the blue planet on his displays. Another world, another easy conquest. The 48th in his career. Scan results. Sub-Commander Thelvas asked, his four eyes fixed on the primitive planet. Below, Rilkin checked his instruments. No orbital defenses detected. No military satellites, no fleet presence. They appear completely unaware of our arrival. Commander Thelvas clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Perfect, just like the last world and the one before. That these simple creatures never saw it coming. By the time they understood what was happening, it would be over. Deep beneath Sol, inside a bunker carved from solid rock, Colonel Tammin Park watched the same alien fleet on holographic displays around him. Officers from a dozen nations worked at their stations. The room hummed with quiet activity. No panic, no fear, only focus. They're here, Tammin said calmly. Into his headset, all stations confirm. Status, Lunar Base Sejong ready, came the first response. Underground fighter. Wing 7 ready, said another voice. 7th Armored Division in position, reported a third. Tammin allowed himself a small smile. 8 months, that's how long they had known this fleet was coming. 8 months since Earth deep space monitoring network, built in secret over the past 5 years, detected the alien trajectory. 8 months to prepare. Captain Juan Quan stood in the briefing room of Underground Hangar Complex 12, addressing her pilots. 30 men and women in flight suits listened carefully. Behind her, a hologram showed the alien fleet position. Remember, Juan said, keeping her voice steady, they think we're primitives. They think this will be easy. Every satellite we own has been powered down. Every defense platform is hidden. Every ship is in stealth mode or underground. As far as they know, we have nothing. One of her pilots, a young man named Kiwan, raised his hand. Captain, what if their sensors are better than we think? What if they see through the stealth coding? Juan shook her head. We built our stealth technology from their crashed scout ship. We know exactly what their sensors can and cannot detect. They see what we want them to see, a defenseless planet on the moon's surface inside lunar base. Sejong, Lieutenant Hyan Lee walked between rows of missile launchers. Each one was concealed beneath a layer of lunar regolith that perfectly matched the surrounding terrain. Hundreds of missiles, all invisible to alien scanners, all pointed at the exact coordinates where enemy ships would pass. Hyan checked her chronometer. The alien fleet would enter firing range in 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting. She had trained her entire life for this moment. But now that it was here, she felt strangely calm. Maybe because she knew Earth was ready. Maybe because she trusted the plan. All crews to battle stations, she announced. Power up. Sequence begins in 5 hours 50 minutes. Not 1 second earlier. 23 run number 4 across the globe. Similar scenes played out in the Nevada desert. Major Doyon Kim inspected artillery positions hidden under camouflage netting in the Pacific submarines. Surface just long enough to receive encrypted orders before diving again. In orbit aboard the hidden command station. Times in Kyan's Fury asterisk. Admiral Minyu Choi reviewed fleet dispositions. One final time, the alien invasion force had chosen 12 landing zones based on population centers. What they didn't know was that humans had predicted every single location. 8 months was a long time to evacuate. Civilians build defensive positions and prepare ambush points back on the Vrathi flagship. Thilva studied tactical displays. His fleet would split into 12 groups, each one targeting a major population. Center drop pods would deploy warrior casts to secure landing zones. Then the heavy equipment would follow. Within 3 planetary rotations, the conquest would be complete. Their largest settlements are clustered on the major land masses. Rielkin reported. We've identified optimal landing coordinates. Shall I give the order to begin descent? Thelvas nodded. Begin the invasion. I want all ground forces deployed within the next 6 hours. Show these primitives the might of the Vrathi Empire. In the Soul Bunker, Tammin received confirmation from all defense sectors. Every piece was in place. Every soldier knew their role. He thought about the millions of people who had worked day and night for 8 months, building weapons, training troops, preparing for this exact moment. He thought about the engineers who had reverse-engineered alien technology from a single crashed scout ship. He thought about the families who had evacuated from major cities without knowing why, trusting their governments to keep them safe. All stations, Tammin said into the command channel, the enemy fleet is beginning their approach. Hold all fire until they reach the designated coordinates. Maintain communications. Silence. Make them think they're winning. Right up until the moment we spring the trap on times in Kyan's Fury asterisk. Admiral Minyu addressed his crew. The command station had been built in secret, assembled from parts launched separately to avoid detection. It looked like space debris from the outside. Inside, it was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. People of Earth, Minyu said, his words transmitted to every military unit across the planet and throughout the solar system. 8 months ago, we detected an invasion fleet. We could have panicked. We could have despaired. Instead, we prepared. The enemy thinks we're helpless. They think this will be easy. They studied 47 conquered worlds and think they know everything about warfare, but they've never fought us. They've never fought a species that has been at war with itself for 10,000 years. Every tactic they know we invented, every strategy they use we've already countered. They came here expecting sheep. Let's show them wolves. As the alien fleet moved closer to Earth, drop pods began launching from their carriers. Thilvas watched the planet grow larger. On his viewscreen, another world, another victory. Nothing could stop them now. He had no idea how wrong he was. The first alien drop pod screamed through Earth's atmosphere, leaving trails of fire across the sky. Inside the lead pod, Vrathi warriors checked their weapons and armor. This was routine. They had done it 47 times before on 47 different worlds. The primitives below would scatter in terror. The conquest would be swift and complete. Thelvas watched from his command ship as 300 drop pods descended toward the planet's surface. Everything was proceeding perfectly. His tactical display showed no resistance, no defensive fire, nothing but a helpless world waiting to be claimed. On the moon, Lieutenant Hiram Lee counted down the seconds. The alien fleet had moved into the predetermined kill zone. Every ship was exactly where the computer models had predicted they would be. She looked at her weapons officer and nodded. All batteries, Hin said. Quietly fire. The moon's surface erupted with light. Hundreds of missiles burst from hidden launchers, accelerating toward the alien fleet. At the same moment, satellites that had appeared dead suddenly powered up across Earth's orbit. What the aliens had thought were simple communication satellites revealed themselves as weapons platforms, rail guns, lasers, and missile pods all activate simultaneously. The forward elements of the Vrothi fleet never knew what hit them. The first wave of missiles struck with devastating precision. Alien carriers exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Smaller ships tried to evade, but the targeting systems had been tracking them for hours. There was nowhere to run. What is happening? Thielvas shouted, his calm demeanor shattered. Where did those weapons come from? Rilken frantically worked his controls. Multiple launches from the moon's surface. The satellites were armed the entire time. They were waiting for us, Commander. They knew we were coming. On the ground near Busausen, Major Down Yun Kim watched the alien drop pods descend. They were landing exactly where the defense planners had predicted. His artillery crews had zeroed their guns on those coordinates weeks ago. He raised his hand, then dropped it sharply. Fire. The ground shook as dozens of artillery pieces opened up simultaneously. Shells arced through the sky and slammed into the landing zone. The first alien pods to touch ground were immediately engulfed in explosions. Warriors emerging from the pods found themselves in a prepared kill zone, surrounded by Dujin defensive positions. Down watched through binoculars as confused aliens tried to form defensive lines. They had expected to terrify civilians. Instead, they faced coordinated military fire from 3 directions. Tanks emerged from concealed positions. Infantry with anti-armor weapons targeted alien heavy troops. Welcome to Earth, Down Yun muttered. Underground hangar complex 12 split open like a blooming flower. Hidden doors that had appeared to be part of the landscape pulled aside. Captain Jiwon and her fighter squadron roared into the sky, their engines screaming. Across the planet, similar hangars opened. Hundreds of fighters took flight. Jiwon locked onto an alien dropship trying to deploy reinforcements. She fired, and her missiles, built using reverse-engineered alien technology, but improved with human engineering, struck true. The dropship tumbled from the sky. All wings engage at will. Jiwon transmitted. Show them what we can do. The Korean-made fighters proved faster and more maneuverable than anything the Vrathi had. The aliens had grown comfortable with their technological superiority. They had forgotten what it was like to face an equal opponent. The human pilots had trained for years in secret, preparing for this exact scenario. In orbit, alien ships tried to regroup. Thielvas ordered his heavy cruisers forward to provide covering fire for the ground forces, but Admiral Minyu had anticipated this move. The command station times inches Fury times powered up its weapons and struck the alien formation from an unexpected angle. Ships Minyu commanded, execute attack. Pattern Delta hit them while they're confused. Hidden stealth ships revealed themselves throughout the battle space. Small fast attack craft launched torpedoes at larger alien vessels. The Vrathi fleet found itself fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously, their numerical advantage negated by poor positioning and complete surprise. On the ground in Busausen, Sergeant Suji hand led her squad through the streets. An alien heavy walker stomped toward their position, its plasma cannon swiving to target them. Suji raised her hand, signaling her troops. They fired anti-tank weapons in coordinated sequence. The first shot damaged the walker's leg joint. The second struck its power core. The massive machine crashed to the ground. Keep moving, Suji shouted. There are more coming. She thought about her family, evacuated months ago to the countryside. They hadn't understood why at the time. Now, she was grateful they were safe. Her squad moved to the next defensive position. An alien warrior rounded the corner, surprised to find humans with military-grade weapons instead of panicked civilians. Suji shot first. In space, the battle continued with brutal intensity. Alien ships that had expected an easy bombardment mission found themselves in a desperate fight for survival. Human pilots coordinated with orbital weapons platforms, creating killing fields that the enemy could not escape. Relin's voice cracked with stress as he reported to the Alvas, "We've lost 37 ships. Commander, ground forces are reporting heavy resistance at all landing zones." They knew where we would land. They knew everything. Theelvo stared at his tactical display in disbelief. This was impossible. These were primitives. They should have been cowering in fear, not fighting with coordinated precision. How did they have this technology? How did they know the Vrathi battle plan? Recall all drop pods, Theelva's ordered. Reform the fleet. We need to reassess. But it was too late for many of the ground forces. Major Doyon and LT, UNC and GT's artillery continued to pound the landing zones. Captain Jiwan's fighters strafed alien positions. Sergeant Suji's infantry cleared the streets block by block. The invasion was turning into a massacre. One alien warrior, wounded and trapped, transmitted a desperate message to his ship. Human soldiers surrounded position. They moved with practiced efficiency, using tactics perfected through centuries of warfare against each other. The warrior realized with horror that these weren't primitives learning to fight. These were veterans of countless battles, just not battles against aliens. Lieutenant Hirn watched from the moon as another wave of missiles launched. The alien fleet was in disarray, ships breaking formation and trying to retreat to higher orbit. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. All those months of preparation were paying off. Target their carriers next, she ordered. Don't let them recover their drop pods on times. In Shan and LT, UNC and GT's Fury *, Admiral Minu observed the battle with calm focus. The aliens were adapting as any military force would, but they were adapting to human tactics, and humans had 10,000 years of tactical innovation to draw from. Every move the aliens made, humanity had a counter. Deploy nuclear counter measures, Minu commanded. His crew looked uncertain. Sir, nuclear weapons. Not as weapons, Minu explained. Detonate them in space to create electromagnetic pulses. Their ships are vulnerable to EMP. Ours are hardened against it. The plan was risky, but it worked. Nuclear weapons detonated in carefully calculated positions. The resulting electromagnetic pulses scrambled alien ship systems. Human vessels built with military-grade shielding pushed through the disrupted field and attacked the crippled alien ships. Thevas watched his fleet die around him. In 30 years of military service, he had never experienced defeat. Now his invasion force was being systematically destroyed by a species he had dismissed as primitive. He looked at Recon, his subcommander. "They were ready for us," Belva said quietly. Real nodded grimly. "Commander, we need to retreat. If we stay, they will destroy the entire fleet." But Thelvos had one more card to play. The flagship itself was powerful enough to turn the tide. He would land it on the planet's surface and use it as a forward base. With its shields and heavy weapons, it could support the surviving ground forces and salvage the invasion. "Prepare for atmospheric entry," Thelvas ordered. "We're taking the fight to their surface." Colonel Tamman, monitoring the battle from Seoul, saw the alien flagship begin its descent. He opened a channel to all commanders. "The enemy flagship is landing," he announced. "All forces prepare for Phase 2. The Vrothi flagship descended through the clouds like a falling mountain. Its massive bulk darkened the sky over the landing zone. Delvas had chosen position carefully open terrain where his ship's weapons could provide maximum coverage. The remaining ground forces rallied toward this new strong point. In orbit, what remained of the alien fleet split into multiple groups. Thevas had changed his strategy. If humans had strong orbital defenses, he would force them to spread thin. Smaller attack groups could slip through and support ground operations. Colonel Tamman studied the tactical display in the Seoul bunker. The aliens were adapting as he knew they would. Any military force that had conquered 47 worlds wasn't stupid. They were learning from their mistakes. "Contact all regional commanders," Tamman said to his communications officer. "Tell them the enemy is dividing their forces. Each region has authority to respond independently. Don't wait for central command approval." This was the advantage humans had always possessed. Rigid command structures worked fine in routine operations, but in chaos, the ability to adapt locally made all the difference. Human military doctrine encouraged initiative at every level. Commander Yunishin of the European Defense Forces received Tamman's message and immediately coordinated with her counterparts in Africa and the Middle East. An alien attack group was approaching their airspace. She didn't need permission from Korea or America to respond. She had the authority and the resources. "Scramble all interceptors," Yuna ordered. "Ground batteries, prepare to fire on my mark." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. American commanders in Nevada repositioned their forces. Chinese generals near Shanghai deployed reserve units. The defense of Earth wasn't run by a single leader. It was a coordinated effort of autonomous commanders who trusted each other. On the ground near the landed flagship, Corporal Jin Wu Nam examined a captured alien plasma rifle. His engineering unit had been tasked with analyzing enemy technology. The weapon was sophisticated, but not beyond understanding. Humans had been reverse engineering alien tech for 5 years now. "I think we can mount this on a tank," Jin Wu said to his commander. "How long?" the commander asked. "Give me 3 hours. You have 2. Jin Wu and his team worked frantically. They stripped the power systems from 3 captured rifles and jury-rigged them to interface with a Korean-made tank's electrical system. It wasn't Pretty, but it worked. The tank could now fire both its conventional cannon and an alien plasma weapon. Within an hour, Jinwu had transmitted the modification blueprints to military networks worldwide. Engineers in America, Europe, and Asia began implementing the same modifications. By evening, human armor across the globe was using alien weapons against their former owners. Admiral Minyu watched the alien fleet movements from times Aeneans. Fury asterisk, they were trying to overwhelm human defenses through multiple simultaneous attacks. A sound strategy against most opponents, but humans had fought wars on multiple fronts for thousands of years. This was familiar territory. Deploy reserve squadrons, Minyu ordered. Position them at these coordinates. When the enemy thinks they've found a gap in our defenses, will close it. Captain Jiwen led her fighter wing against an alien attack group approaching the Pacific. Her squadron had taken losses in the initial battle. 3 pilots killed, 5 more wounded, but they survivors were learning with every engagement. They knew the alien ship's weaknesses. Now they understood their tactics. Thanks for watching, and they were men or something. Zadari Blue Wing hit them from above. Jiwen commanded. Red Wing, come in low, let's box them in. The human fighters moved with practiced coordination. The aliens found themselves caught in a crossfire. Jiwen's targeting computer locked onto an enemy vessel. She fired, watched her missiles strike home, then immediately banked hard to avoid return fire. Behind her, Lieutenant Kiwen followed her lead perfectly, taking out another alien ship. They fought not as individuals but as a unit, each pilot supporting the others. The aliens she noticed tended to fight more independently. They had superior technology for so long that they had forgotten the basics of tactical cooperation. On the ground, Major Doyen's 7th Armored Division advanced toward the landed flagship. His tanks, now equipped with both conventional and alien weapons, formed a spearhead. Artillery provided covering fire. Infantry moved in coordinated groups, using buildings and terrain for cover. An alien heavy walker emerged from behind the flagship. It was larger than anything Down had seen before, its armor thick enough to shrug off conventional weapons, but his lead tank had Jin Wu and LT Unk and GTS modification. The tank commander fired the jury-rigged plasma weapon. The alien walker shields flickered and failed. A second shot from a conventional cannon penetrated the armor. The walker collapsed. Keep pushing, Down ordered. We need to contain them before they dig in. But the aliens weren't giving up easily. Varathi warriors established defensive positions around the flagship. Their plasma weapons cut through human vehicles and armor. The battle became brutal, with neither side willing to retreat. Down's command tank took a direct hit. The plasma shot melted through the armor plating but narrowly missed the crew. Alarms blared. The tank was crippled. Down and his crew abandoned the vehicle and joined the infantry assault on foot. In the sky above, Captain Salmon Park flew her damaged fighter toward an alien cruiser. Her engines were failing, her weapon systems offline. The cruiser was positioning itself to bombard Busausen, where millions of civilians had not yet been evacuated. This is Captain Park to all units, Salmon transmitted calmly. I'm making a run at that cruiser. Get clear. Negative, Park. Jiwen's voice crackled over the radio. Eject. We and LT Unk and GT LL find another way. Salmon looked at her instrument panel. Her ejection system was damaged too. And there wasn't another way. The cruiser would fire in less than a minute. Tell my family I love them, Solman said. She pushed her fighter to maximum speed and aimed straight for the cruiser's primary weapon port. The aliens saw her coming and fired desperately, but she was already too close. Her fighter struck the cruiser's weapon port and exploded. The detonation triggered a chain reaction inside the cruiser. The entire alien ship went up in a massive fireball. Juin watched her friend die and felt tears sting her eyes, but there was no time to grieve. Other alien ships needed to be stopped. Other cities needed to be defended. She wiped her eyes and turned her fighter toward the next target for summon. Jai said quietly. Inside the landed flagship, Thelvas monitored the deteriorating situation. His fleet was scattered. His ground forces were taking heavy casualties. The primitives were not just fighting back. They were winning. Real approached with another devastating report. Commander, we've lost 60% of our fleet. Ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation. They cannot hold their positions. Delvas slammed his fist on the console. How are these primitives defeating us? Rielkin pulled up tactical recordings from the battle. He showed Thelvas how human forces adapted in real time, how they shared information instantly across their entire military, how local commanders made independent decisions without waiting for orders. Commander, Recon said carefully, we are not fighting primitives. We are fighting something we have never encountered before. Look at their world's history. 2. They have been at war with themselves constantly. Every weapon system we use, they invented first. Every tactic we know, they have already countered. We studied 47 conquered species and thought we understood warfare, but these humans, they have thousands of years of experience fighting opponents just as advanced as themselves. Belva stared at the tactical displays. Real was right. The Vrathi had grown comfortable with easy conquests. They had forgotten what it meant to fight a true military power. Colonel Tamman received reports from all fronts. Battles were costly. Thousands of human soldiers had died. Entire units had been wiped out, but they were winning. The alien invasion was collapsing. All commanders, Tamman transmitted. The enemy is weakening. Maintain pressure. Do not give them time to regroup. A young lieutenant approached Tamman with a question. Sir, how did we know exactly how to fight them? We'd never faced aliens before. No, Tamman smiled grimly. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We've seen every tactic, faced every weapon, experienced every form of warfare. The aliens brought military technology to a planet that invented military technology. They brought war to a species that perfected war. They thought studying 47 conquered worlds taught them everything. We learned by fighting ourselves, constantly improving, constantly adapting. They brought knives to gun factory. The battle for Earth raged on, but the outcome was becoming clear. Humanity would survive. The real question now was what came next. The landed flagship Times, Dominion's edge. Times had become a fortress. Theos deployed his remaining warriors in defensive positions around the massive ship. Its shields protected them from artillery fire. Its weapons kept human Forces at a distance, if he could hold this position long enough. Reinforcements might arrive from the Vrathi Empire. General Minyaquan studied reconnaissance images of the alien strong point. The flagship was too well defended for a conventional siege. They could surround it, but the aliens had enough supplies to last months. By then other alien fleets might come to investigate why this one had gone silent. We need to take that ship, Minjay said to his staff officers, fast and hard before they can dig in further. Lieutenant Colonel Unjai stepped forward. She had commanded Special Forces units for 15 years. General, give me a combined arms task force. I can take that ship. It's a fortress. One of the other officers protested. You'd need overwhelming numbers. Unjai shook her head. Numbers won't help against those shields. We need precision, fast assault with armor, support infantry breach teams, and constant air cover. Hit them everywhere at once so they can't concentrate their defenses. Minjay considered the plan. It was risky. Casualties would be high, but Unjai was right. They couldn't afford to wait. You have a go, Minjay decided. I'll give you the 7th Armored Division, 3 infantry battalions, and all available air support. When do you want to start? Dawn Yunji said. Give the troops a few hours rest. We attack at first light. The sun rose over the battlefield, revealing the massive alien flagship sitting like a dark monument among the ruined landscape. Around it, Vrathi warriors manned defensive positions. Above it, shields shimmered in the morning light. Yunji stood in the command vehicle, watching the battlefield through monitors. Her task force had positioned itself. During the night, tanks, infantry, fighting vehicles, mobile artillery, ready to move on her command. All units. Yunji transmitted, this is it. The aliens are dug in. They think they're safe. Let's prove them wrong. The attack began with an artillery barrage. Shells rained down on the alien positions, forcing the defenders to take cover. Then the tanks advanced, firing their main guns and the jury-rigged plasma weapons behind them. Infantry fighting vehicles deployed troops who moved in coordinated squads. Captain Juan's fighter wings screamed overhead, dropping bombs on alien weapon imp placements. The aliens fired back their plasma cannons, tracking the fast-moving human aircraft. One fighter exploded in midair, another spun out of control and crashed, but the rest pressed the attack. Sergeant Suji Han's squad was part of the initial assault wave. They advanced under covering fire from tanks, using smoke grenades to obscure the aliens' line of sight. Plasma bolts cut through the smoke, missing by inches. Suji's squad reached the outer hull of the flagship, breaching charges ready. Suji shouted, her demolitions expert. Place shaped charges against the hull. Everyone took cover. The explosion tore a hole in the alien ship's armor. Before the smoke cleared, Suji led her squad through the breach. Inside the ship, they found themselves in a dim corridor. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow. The sound of the battle outside was muffled by the thick walls. Suji's squad moved cautiously, weapons raised. A Vrathi warrior appeared around the corner. Both sides fired simultaneously. The alien's plasma bolt scorched the wall next to Suji's head. Her rifle rounds caught the warrior in the chest, dropping him. More aliens appeared. The corridor became a shooting gallery. Other breach teams entered the ship from different points. The plan was working by attacking everywhere at once. the aliens couldn't concentrate their forces. They were forced to defend multiple corridors, multiple decks spreading their warriors. Then, Specialist Tjun-O's squad encountered something unexpected in one of the lower decks, aliens but not. These were smaller with different features. They cowered in a cargo hold. Clearly terrified, Tjun recognized them from intelligence briefings, slaves from previously conquered worlds. We're an LT, UNC, and GT. Not here to hurt you, Tjun said, though he had no idea if they understood. One of the slaves, a being with gray skin and large eyes, pointed at the Vrathi and made a harsh gesture. The meaning was clear. They hated their captors. Tjun pulled out a translation device, salvaged from captured alien equipment. It took several tries, but finally the device produced word. The slaves understood. We fight the Vrathi, Tjun said through the translator. Help us, and we will free you. The slaves looked at each other, then back at Tjun. Slowly one of them nodded. They knew the ship's layout. They knew where the Vrathi kept their weapons, their supplies, their command centers. The slaves became guides, leading human soldiers through the complex interior of the flagship. On the bridge, Belvas watched his defenses crumble. Human forces were inside his ship, fighting deck by deck. His warriors were brave and well-trained, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer determination and tactical skill. They're using our own slaves against us, Rielkin reported. The humans freed them, and now they're guiding the enemy through our ship. Thielvas felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, genuine fear. These humans didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with psychology, turning his own conquered peoples against him. Major Down, now commanding an infantry company after his tank was destroyed, pushed forward through the ship's corridors. His troops had taken casualties but maintained momentum. Every meter gained was held, market. Every defensive position was overwhelmed. He encountered a group of the freed slaves in a junction. They gestured frantically, pointing upward and speaking in their own language. The translation device on Down's belt produced words. Command center, up. Down nodded his thanks and led his company toward the ship's command center. They fought their way up through 3 more decks. Vrathi warriors made desperate stands, but human numbers and determination prevailed. Lieutenant Colonel Unjai coordinated the assault from outside, sending reinforcements to breach teams that encountered heavy resistance. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Her task force had suffered terrible losses, nearly 30% casualties. But they were winning. Colonel Tamman watched from the Seoul Command Center. Similar battles were being fought across the planet as human forces eliminated the last alien strong points. The invasion was effectively over. Now it was just cleanup operations. All remaining alien ships are attempting to flee. An officer reported. Admiral Minu is pursuing in space. The few surviving Vathi ships try to reach the edge of the solar system and jump to faster than light travel, but human fighters harassed them every step of the way. Some alien ships made it, most didn't. Inside the flagship, Sergeant Sudi's squad reached the bridge. They planted breaching charges on the armored door. The explosion blew it open. Suji and her soldiers rushed in, weapons ready. Thielva stood at the center of the bridge, a plasma pistol in his hand. Around him, his bridge crew lay dead or dying. The fleet commander was wounded. His armor scorched and cracked, but he held his weapon steady. "You will not take this ship," Talva said in his own language. Colonel Tamman, who had left the command bunker to personally oversee the final assault, entered the bridge. Behind Suji's squad, he looked at the alien commander with steady eyes. "Your invasion is over," Tamman said. "Surrender, and you'll be treated as prisoners of war under our conventions." Thealvas laughed bitterly. "The Empire will return 10 fleets. 100, you cannot stand against us." Tamman stepped forward until he stood just meters from the alien commander. "Let them come. We and LT Unk and GTLL be ready. You thought we were primitives. You thought this would be easy. Now you know better. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them about Earth. Tell them about humans." Thealva stared at the human colonel. He saw no fear, no hesitation, only absolute confidence. The fleet commander lowered his weapon. "I surrender," Delva said. Hours later, as the sun set over the battlefield, Unjai walked through the captured flagship. Medical teams tended to wounded soldiers. Engineers examined alien technology. The slaves liberated from the ship's holds were being processed and cared for. The cost had been terrible. Nearly 800 soldiers killed in the assault, 2,000 wounded, but they had won. The alien flagship was theirs. The invasion was defeated. In the command center, intelligence officers discovered the flagship's database intact. What they found inside changed everything. Earth wasn't the only world being invaded. The Vratha had launched simultaneous invasions of 12 planets. This was meant to be a coordinated campaign. General Minjay read the intelligence report with growing horror. 11 other worlds were being invaded right now, worlds that didn't have 8 months warning, worlds that weren't prepared. "We have to help them," Captain Jiwan said. When she heard the news, "Help them?" an officer questioned. "We just barely defended our own world." Jiwan looked at him sharply. "We had 8 months to prepare. These other worlds got no warning. They're dying right now. We have captured alien ships. We have reverse engineered technology. If we can fight, shouldn't we?" In the emergency meeting that followed, human leaders debated their next move. Some argued for isolation, focus on rebuilding, on strengthening Earth's defenses. Others, like Jiwan, pushed for intervention. Finally, Admiral Minyu spoke. "We spent 8 months preparing to defend our home, and we did, but there are people out there dying because they didn't get that chance. We have the capability to help. The question is, do we have the courage?" The vote was close, but ultimately decided humanity would go to war, not for conquest but for liberation. The human expeditionary fleet assembled in Earth's orbit. Over a period of 3 weeks, engineers worked around the clock to repair captured Vrathi ships and retrofit them for human crews. Other vessels were built using reverse-engineered alien technology combined with human improvements. The fleet wouldn't be large, but it would be capable. Admiral Minyu stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Time Soul Rising Asterisk, a hybrid vessel built from salvaged alien parts and human engineering. Around him, his command crew ran final system checks. In the hangar bays, Captain Jiwan's fighter squadrons prepared for launch. All ships report ready, the communications officer announced. Minyu looked out at the fleet. 20 warships. Not enough to conquer an empire, but perhaps enough to tip the balance on 11 invaded worlds, behind them Earth's orbital defenses remained strong. The planet could defend itself now. Navigation plot course to the nearest invaded world, mean you ordered all ships. Prepare for faster than light jump. Fleet vanished in a flash of distorted space heading toward their first destination. The world was called Calura by its inhabitants. It was a peaceful planet, its people focused on art and philosophy rather than warfare. When the Vrathi invasion came, the Kellorans had tried to negotiate. The aliens had responded with plasma fire. Now 3 months into the occupation, Kelloran cities burned. The survivors hid in mountains and forests, hunted by Vrathi patrols. Thelvaz's counterpart in this invasion, Fleet Commander Vexatl, was preparing to begin the systematic enslavement of the population. Then human ships appeared in the sky. Vexel stared at his displays in confusion. These were Vrathi vessels, but the identification codes were wrong. The ships were moving in formation patterns he didn't recognize. Unknown vessels. Identify yourselves, Vexel transmitted. Admiral Minu responded with a simple message: this world is under our protection. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed under your protection. Vexel was baffled. What species dares challenge the Vrathi Empire? We are humans, Minu replied. From Earth, your fleet there is no longer responding. We know why. Leave now. Vexetl had heard rumors of a failed invasion somewhere in the Empire's expansion sector, but no details. Communications were slow across such vast distances. He decided these intruders were bluffing. Attack, Vexel ordered. Destroy them. The Vrathi fleet moved to engage. They outnumbered the human ships 2 to 1, but they didn't know what they were facing. Minu's fleet had learned from Earth's defense the tactics that had shattered one Vrathi invasion would work again. Captain Jiwon launched with her squadron, diving straight into the alien formation. Her pilots moved with practiced precision, targeting the alien ships' weak points behind them. Human warships opened fire with weapons that combined alien power and human ingenuity. The Battle of Calura lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Vextol's fleet was scattered and broken. The fleet commander himself died when his flagship's power core was breached. The surviving alien ships fled into faster than light travel, abandoning their ground forces. On Calura's surface, the remaining Vrathi warriors found themselves cut off and surrounded. Human forces who had learned urban warfare over thousands of years moved through the ruined cities with devastating efficiency. Within 2 days, the alien occupation was over. Kellorans emerged from hiding cautiously. They had never seen humans before, these strange bipeds who moved with predatory grace and spoke in sharp, efficient tones. Colonel Tammin, commanding the ground forces, met with Kelloran leaders. Why did you help us? Asked Fenner, a Kelloran elder. His people were marsupial-like beings with soft fur and large gentle eyes. They looked nothing like the aggressive humans. Because we could, Tammin replied simply, and because it was right. The fleet stayed at Keller for a week, helping repair critical infrastructure and train a Kelloran defense force. Then they moved to the next invaded world. Over the following months, the human expeditionary force liberated world after world. Each battle taught them more about the Vrathi and about the other species in the galaxy. They weren't all peaceful like the Colorins. Some fought fiercely alongside their liberators. Others were so traumatized by the invasion they could barely function. Lieutenant Colonel Unjai led ground forces on 6 different worlds, each one presented unique challenges. On a desert planet they fought in sandstorms. On a water world, combat took place on floating cities. On a frozen moon they battled in sub-zero temperatures, but humans who had evolved to survive everywhere from Arctic tundra to tropical jungles on their own world adapted quickly. Sergeant Suji saved an alien child on the 4th world they liberated, the small being some species she didn't know was trapped under rubble. From a collapsed building, Suji and her squad dug through debris for 3 hours to free the child. When they finally pulled the little alien out, its parent rushed over, speaking frantically in an unknown language. The translation device conveyed the meaning, "Thank you, thank you, you saved my child." Suji smiled tiredly. That's what we do. The freed populations began calling humans Terran, using the name for Earth from ancient human languages. Word spread through underground networks and resistance movements. Terran soldiers were coming. They fought not for conquest but for freedom. They asked for nothing in return except the promise that the freed peoples would defend themselves if invasion came. Again, on the 8th liberated world, Major Du Yun encountered something unexpected. A group of Rothai warriors who surrendered without fighting. They explained through translators that they had heard what happened on Earth. They had heard about Fleet Commander Theovaz's defeat. They didn't want to die for an empire that sent them on doomed missions. What do we do with them? Asked one of Dunn and LT Unk and GT's officers. Down thought about it. He thought about the soldiers his division had lost. He thought about the hatred that would be easy to feel. Then he thought about what kind of galaxy humanity wanted to create. Take them as prisoners. Down Yun decided, treat them according to our conventions. Maybe they'll tell others that surrender is an option. Maybe it will save lives on both sides. Admiral Minyu received reports of all 11 liberation campaigns. 8 had succeeded completely, 2 were still in progress, 1 had arrived too late. The population was already enslaved and transported off-world. That failure haunted him. We can't save everyone, Captain Juan said when she found Minyu staring at casualty reports. I know, Minyu replied, but we have to try. 6 months after the invasion of Earth, Colonel Tammin found himself serving as a diplomatic liaison rather than a military commander. Leaders of liberated worlds wanted to meet humans, to understand them, to thank them. Kellerin scientist asked Tammin question that many were thinking. Why are you so good at war? Is violence natural to your species? Tammin considered how to answer. We're not naturally violent, we're naturally competitive. On Earth, we were divided into hundreds of groups, nations, tribes, kingdoms. We competed for resources, for territory, for ideas. Sometimes that competition turned violent. Over 10,000 years we fought countless wars against each other. We learned every form of warfare, developed every weapon, perfected every tactic. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to survive against opponents just as intelligent and just as determined as ourselves. And now, the scientist asked, now we use those hard-learned lessons to protect others, Tammin said. Vrathi thought, studying conquered Species taught them about war, but they only saw one side of war, the side where a powerful force crushes a weaker one. They never faced an equal opponent. We spent millennia fighting equals. That's the difference. The Vathi Empire, meanwhile, struggled to understand what had happened. 12 invasions launched simultaneously. 12 invasions defeated by primitive species or by mysterious Terran. The High Council met in emergency session. Some council members demanded immediate retaliation. Send a 100 fleets to Earth, destroy this threat. Others argued for caution. We don't know what we're facing. Every fleet we send against them is destroyed. Every tactic we use they counter. We need intelligence before we act. Debate continued. The Vathi Empire, which had expanded unchallenged for generation, was experiencing its first real military setback. They had no idea how to respond. On Earth, humanity prepared for what might come. Orbital defenses were strengthened. New ships were built. Alliances were formed. With liberated worlds, Captain Jiwan trained alien pilots in human tactics. Sergeant Suji helped organize defensive militias on freed planets, but not everyone celebrated. Major Dune recovered from his wounds, visited the memorial wall in Seoul. Names covered its surface, 2.3 million. Humans who died defending Earth and liberating other worlds. He found the name of Captain Salman Park, who had sacrificed herself to save Bushausen. He stood there silently, remembering. Was it worth it? Asked a voice behind him. Down turned to see General Minjae. The older man looked tired. Command had aged him. I don't know, Down admitted. We saved a lot of people, but the cost. War always has a cost, Minjae said. The question is whether we're willing to pay it and whether we learn from it. Form. The general addressed the newly formed Terran Defense Force. Weeks later, officers from Earth stood alongside representatives from freed worlds. Some wore human uniforms, others wore their own people's traditional military dress. But they stood together. The Vratha came to conquer us because they saw us as weak. Minjae said they were wrong, but let's not become what they are. We didn't arm ourselves to dominate. We armed ourselves to never kneel. We fought not for empire, but for freedom. Let's remember that. In the audience, Corporal Jin Wu listened carefully. He had been promoted to lieutenant and now trained engineers from other worlds and human military technology. The aliens were eager learners. They had seen what humans could do and wanted to protect their own worlds. The galaxy had changed. Before there were conquerors and the conquered. Now there was a third option. Resistance. Human technology and human tactical knowledge were spreading. The Vrathi Empire's easy conquests were over. On a distant world still under Vrathi control, a slave whispered to another in the darkness, have you heard about the Terran, warriors from a blue world who fight not for empire but for freedom? Is it true? The other slave asked. I don't know, but even the Vrathi fear them now, and where there is fear there is hope. On Earth, children played in parks rebuilt after the invasion. In orbit, defense platforms watched the stars. Humanity was no longer isolated. They had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as defenders. Admiral Minyu stood on the bridge of time, Seoul rising asterisk, looking at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many species. Some would be friends, some would be enemies, but humanity was ready. Now Captain Jiwen joined him. New orders, she asked. Reports of a slave rebellion on a Vroy mining colony. Mean you said they're asking for help. Jiwen smiled. Then let's go help them. Ship turned toward the stars and jumped to faster than light travel. Behind it, Earth continued its watch. Humanity had learned its lesson. Never again would they be unprepared. Never again would they be helpless, and never again would they allow others to suffer if they had the power to intervene. The Vrathi had come to invade. They had found Terran soldiers waiting for battle, and the galaxy would never be the